The Sumerian King List is a very unusual artifact that was discovered in Iraq, where the great Sumerian cities once thrived. The Sumerian King List is an ancient manuscript that was first recorded in the Sumerian language. The manuscript listed the kings of Sumer from the Sumerians and neighboring dynasties. The list shows the supposed king's reign lengths and the location of the kingship. What makes the manuscript stand out from other Sumerian artifacts is the fact that it mixes mythical pre-dynastic rulers with actual historical kings. The first fragment of the rare text was a 4,000-year-old tablet written in cuneiform. The tablet was first found in the early 1900s by the German-American scholar Hermann Hiprecht at the site of ancient Nippur. Ever since Hermann's discovery, there were at least 18 more examples of the King's List found. Most of the lists were dated from the second half of the Isin Dynasty from 2017 to 1794 BC. Of course, none of these lists are identical, but the material in each of the lists makes it apparent that they did at one point originate from a single document of Sumerian history. Of all the examples of the Sumerian King's List, the Weld-Blundell Prism in the Ashmolean Museum Cuneiform Collection in Oxford is the most general version as well as the most complete copy we have on the King's List. The Weld-Blundell Prism was made from baked clay with 4 equal sides. Each of the sides was about 20 centimeters high and 9 centimeters wide. The center of the prism is pierced vertically. This gave historians the idea that it may have had a wooden spindle going around its center, possibly so it could be rotated so an individual could read all 4 sides. Each of the sides of the prism is inscribed with 2 columns of text. The Weld-Blundell Prism is named after the man who gave it to the museum. So, who wrote the Weld-Blundell Prism? The prism was written by an unnamed scribe in the city of Larsa in Babylonia at around 1800 BC. What is interesting is the scholars at the time still spoke in the Sumerian language of the people that inhabited the region for thousands of years. The common people of Larsa spoke in Akkadian, which made Sumerian an outdated language. The Weld-Blundell Prism lists rulers from the Antediluvian Dynasties, which is before the supposed flood, to the 14th ruler of the Isin Dynasty, from 1763 to 1753 BC. So what makes this list unusual? Well, if we look deeper into the contents of the list, we will find that the kings lived a very long time. Let's look at a translation of the 8 kings from the Antediluvian dynasties. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alalaim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Alalajar ruled for 36,000 years. 2 kings. They ruled for 64,800 years. Then Eridu fell, and the kingship was taken to Bad Tibra. In Bad Tibra, Amen-Luenna ruled for 43,200 years. Eben-Gal-Enna ruled for 28,800 years. The divine Dumuzi, the shepherd, ruled for 36,000 years. 3 kings. They ruled for 108,000 years. Then Bad Tibra fell, and the kingship was taken to Larek. In Larek, Antipad-Enna ruled for 28,800 years. 1 king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Then Larkek fell, and the kingship was taken to Sapur. Edmen-Dur-Enna became king. He ruled for 21,000 years. 1 king. He ruled for 21,000 years. Then Sapir fell, and the kingship was taken to Serupek. In Serupek, Aburatutu became king. He ruled for 18,600 years. 1 king. He ruled for 18,600 years. 5 cities. 8 kings ruled for 385,200 years. Then the flood swept over. At this point, the flood has impacted the king's long rules, as their lives drastically decrease. To save some time, I will say that the king's lives eventually became that of ordinary human rulers in the end. So the question is, why would the ancient scribe mix mythical kings with actual kings? That is a big question to ponder, as many have. This has led to many different interpretations for the long reigns. The first 2 interpretations are more along the lines of extreme, The first is to completely dismiss the text as fiction and not worthy of serious consideration. The second is the exact opposite. It is to interpret the long lives as being true, saying that the kings were gods that had the ability to live longer than humans. Of course, there is a middle ground in between the two extremes. The numbers could have been years of a specific family dynasty, but what family dynasty would live 28,000 years? In this next theory, the long numbers don't represent years, but actually represent relative power, accomplishments, or importance. Take ancient Egypt, for example. The phrase, "he died at 110, referred to an individual that lived a life to the fullest and offered much to society. So the list showing longer lives from the kings could have just meant they were more important in the eyes of their people. It sounds like a good theory, but there are some important questions that appear. How would the people add a fair algebraic value to their kings? What was the cap of that value? The numerical value also does not explain why later periods of kingship switched to realistic periods. It is possible that later generations gave up on this tradition in favor of realistic lives. As far as motives for the Weld-Blundell Prism, specifically, it is possible that the ancient scribe wrote the text to demonstrate that Babylonia had always been united under one ruler. It could have been intended to suggest that the rulers in the different cities had rule over the whole region, or the list could have legitimized the political goals of the ruler of Larsa at the time of the writing. The problem with all these different interpretations is the fact they all can be debunked. For all I know, any theory is close to being correct. I find it funny that the Sumerian Kings List leaves us with more questions than answers. It makes me wonder if the mystery of the list will ever be solved. Thanks for watching. So what is your guys' take on the Sumerian Kings List? What could be the reason for the long reigns of kingship? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the content, leave a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe for more historical content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.